Shri Srimadi's Divine Grace of Bhai Chanaravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Gopinath Bhagavan Ki Jai. Shri Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maharani Ki Jai. Shri Shri Gaur Nitai Bhagavan Ki Jai. Kantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrindi Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande Hare Hare Bo. Hare Krishna. So we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto number 4, Chapter 7, the sacrifice performed by Daksha, text 38. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Cheva Narotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudhirayet Nashta Prayasha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Text 38. Yogeshvara Uchuhu Prayannate Nyo Stityamuttastvai Prabho Prayannate Nyostyamuttastvai Prabho Vishvatmanikshena Pritagya Atmanaha Vishvatmanikshena Pritagya Atmanaha Atapi Bhaktye Shatayopadhavatam Atapi Bhaktye Shatayopadhavatam Ananya Vrityanugrahana Vatsala Ananya Vrityanugrahana Vatsala Yogeshvara Uchuhu Prayannate Nyostityamuttastvai Prabho Prayannate Nyostityamuttastvai Vishvatmanikshena Pritagya Atmanaha Atapi Bhaktye Shatayopadhavatam Ananya Vrityanugrahana Vatsala Yogeshvara Uchuhu Prayannate Nyostyamuttastvai Prabho Vishvatmanikshena Pritagya Atmanaha Atapi Bhaktye Shatayopadhavatam Ananya Vrityanugrahana Vatsala Yogeshvara Uchuhu Prayannate Nyostyamuttastvai Prabho Vishvatmanikshena prithag ya atmanaha. Yogeshvara uchuhu Prayannate nyostyamutastvai prabho Vishvatmanikshena prithagya atmanaha Atapi bhaktyesha tayo bhavdavatam Ananya vritya anugrahana vatsala Yogeshvara uchuhu Prayanate nyostyamutastvai prabhu Vishvatmanikshena prithagya atmanaha Atapi bhaktyesha tayo padavatam Ananya vrityanugrahana vatsala. Mataji. Yogeshvara uchuhu Vishmatmanikshena prithagya atmanaha Atapi bhaktyesha tayo padhavatam Ananya vrityanugrahana vatsalaha Yogeshvara uchuhu Prayanate nyostityamutastvai prabho Pritmatmanikshen na prithag ya atmanaha Atapi bhaktyesha tayo padhavatam Ananya vrityanugrahana vatsala. Word for word translation. Yoga Ishvaraha. The great mystics Uchuhu said, Prayan, very dear, na, not, te, of you, anyaha, another, asti, there is, amutaha, from that, tvai, in you, prabho, dear Lord, Vishva Atmani, in the super soul of all living entities. Ikshet, see, na, not, pritak, different, yaha, who, Atmanaha, the living entities, ata api, so much more, bhaktya, with devotion, Isha, O Lord, Taya, with it, Upadhavatam, of those who worship, Ananyavritya, unfailing, Anugrahana, favor, Vatsala, O favorable Lord. Translation. The great mystics said, Dear Lord, persons who see you as non-different from themselves, knowing that you are the supersoul of all living entities, are certainly very, very dear to you. You are very favorable toward those who engage in devotional service, accepting you as the Lord and themselves as the servants. By your mercy, you are always inclined in their favor. Please repeat after me. The great mystics said, Dear Lord, persons who see you as non-different from themselves, knowing that you are the supersoul of all living entities, are certainly very, very dear to you. You are very favorable toward those who engage in devotional service, accepting you as the Lord and themselves as the servants. By your mercy, you are always inclined in their favor. Purport by Srila Prabhupada, Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. It is indicated in this verse that the monists and the great mystics know the Supreme Personality of Godhead as one. This oneness is not the misunderstanding that a living entity is equal in every respect to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This monism is based on pure knowledge as described and confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, text 17. Priyo hi jnani no tyartam aham sacha mama priyaha. The Lord says that those who are advanced in transcendental knowledge and know the science of Krishna consciousness are very dear to Him, and He is also very dear to them. Those who are actually in perfect knowledge of the science of God know that the living entities are superior energy of the Supreme Lord. This is stated in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7th chapter. The material energy is inferior and the living entities are superior energy. Energy and the energetic are non-different. Therefore, energies possess the same quality as the energetic. Persons who are in full knowledge of the personality of Godhead, analyzing His different energies and knowing their own constitutional position, are certainly very, very dear to the Lord. Persons, however, who may not even be conversant with knowledge of the Supreme Personality, but who always think of the Lord with love and faith, feeling that He is great and they are His parts and parcels, ever His servitors, are even more favored by Him. The particular significance of this verse is that the Lord is addressed as Vatsala. Vatsala means always favorably disposed. The Lord's name is Bhakta Vatsala. The Lord is famous as Bhakta Vatsala, which means that He is always favorably inclined to the devotees, whereas He is never addressed anywhere in the Vedic literature as Jnani Vatsala. Translation again. The great mystics said, Dear Lord, persons who see you as non-different from themselves, knowing that you are the supersoul of all living entities, are certainly very, very dear to you. You are very favorable towards those who engage in devotional service, accepting you as the Lord and themselves as the servants. By your mercy, you are always inclined in their favor. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militham Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Mukum karoti vachalam bhungam vangayate girimyat kripahat tamaham vande Shri Gurun Devtaram Pramanamadavam Shri Chaitanyeshwaram. Hare Krishna. So we're continuing the set of prayers given by the various participants of the yagya. This is the yagya after which Daksha gets his goat's head, and after he offers his prayers to Lord Shiva for forgiveness. And so when it's mentioned that Daksha, when they offered the oblations into the fire, Lord Narayan himself appeared in his four-handed form. And we see how each individual personality, ranging from the demigods to the wives of the Brahmanas themselves, in the Siddhas, the wife of Daksha himself, yesterday was the Lokapala, and today we're hearing from the great mystics. And each one of them are offering prayers glorifying Krishna according to their position, according to their realization. When Krishna entered into the arena in Mathura after killing Kuvalayapid, the elephant, it's mentioned by Sukadeva Goswami that each individual person in that arena saw Krishna according to their relationship with him. Can anyone remember that particular section? Can anyone give any personalities and how they saw Krishna? One at a time, Mataji. We'll give him a chance. You'll finish everything. So the parents saw them as their children, someone who needs protection, love and care. Kamsa saw him as death personified. Yeah, okay. Yep, the ladies saw him as Cupid. What did the cowherd boy see him as? As his friend, right? Then the unintelligent, how do they see him? Sorry? An ordinary person? What do the others see him as? He saw him as the best of all yadus. Anything else? Can anyone remember? Yep. Okay. Anyone else? Super soul, yes. Okay. So you can see that even they had different perceptions. The Mathura Vasis, each one of them saw him differently and related with him differently. But in this section, I always remember this point that Sukadeva Goswami says that when he entered the arena, how everyone engaged their senses in taking darshan of Krishna. And the best part was when I first read that, then I was thinking how, what bewildered me the most is how they were able to taste Krishna. Just by taking darshan, they were able to taste Krishna with their tongues. They used all their senses to be able to perceive Krishna, to be able to associate with Krishna somehow or other. Side point. So the point here I'm trying to make is that we can see that each individual person, each individual group of people, when they worship the Lord, they're worshipping Him according to their own realization. Right? So when we offer prayers to the Lord, we can also do the same thing. In fact, it's mentioned that we offer our heartfelt prayers, but we also recite or repeat the Acharya's prayers, because that's where we want to head to. That's the highest platform of devotion when offering prayers. So when we offer those prayers, then Krishna accepts them. And that reciprocation between us and Krishna is there according to the degree of our relationship. But it's a great mercy, it's a great fortune on our part and the mercy given by the Acharyas that we're able to repeat the prayers that they give. Because they offer it in the most purest of hearts, without any ulterior motive. Right? They offer it from with sincerity and great faith, which we don't have. But when we repeat, Krishna is very pleased. And that is the goal of our devotional service, right? Yeah? Because if the goal of devotional service was perfection in devotional service, perfect devotee, all your service must be perfect, then Krishna doesn't need to look here. Krishna has enough eternal servitors. He is Nitya Parivar. They are performing perfect devotional service unto Him. What Krishna is looking for is something very simple. And that is an act of devotion. And he mentions this it is mentioned very clearly in Shrimad Bhagavatam, that all Krishna is looking for is ahoituki and apratihata. Two very simple things, but very difficult to perform for the contaminated soul. He wants undeviated, uninterrupted and unmotivated devotional service. Ahoituki apratihata. Only those who are sincere and faithful can perform devotional service uninterruptedly and without ulterior motive. Sincere and faithful. These are the two words Prabhupada uses. I was recently reading in Chaitanya Charitamrita. You see, devotional service is a very rare thing because there are two criteria for one to be able to take up devotional service, Prabhupada. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami mentions, quoting Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu giving Sanatan Shiksha. He's instructing Sanatan Goswami. And he's telling Sanatan Goswami that, see, only one who has turned their devotion to Krishna, who is exclusively worshipping Krishna, is able to perform devotional service. And the second thing is, for perfection in devotional service is very difficult. Okay, let me take a step back. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is telling Sanatan Goswami, for perfection in devotional service is very difficult. Why? Because you need to satisfy these two criteria. One, it must be exclusively for Krishna. Nobody else. Right? And second is that Krishna himself doesn't give perfection in devotional service that easily unless he deems the candidate qualified. And what are the two criteria that's given? Sincerity and faith. Prabhupada says Krishna doesn't give pure devotional service unless a person is sincere, faithful and without ulterior motive. And you can understand this in very comparison to that verse, ahoituki apratihata yayatmasu prasidati. That without interruption and without ulterior motive, with sincerity and with faith. One who's sincere and who's faithful will not give up Krishna at all. They will stick to Krishna's lotus feet. So in that way they will continually perform devotional service. And because their motive, they're sincere, their motive is, I'm here to simply perform service to Krishna, to give Krishna the best that I can. Such a person does it without ulterior motive, right? Because if you're thinking, I need to do the best for Krishna, what does that mean? It means nothing for yourself. You're giving 100% to Krishna and 0 to yourself. Do you remember Prabhupada mentioning this a lot, right? Krishna sees what? What does Krishna see? Does Krishna see what you're giving him? Yes, of course he sees what you're giving him. But what is he concerned about? Mood, attitude. I'm looking for something else. Endeavor, okay, I'm looking for something else. Bhava, bhakti, I'm looking for something else. What you're holding back. What is it that you're holding back? Ourselves, yes. What are we holding back? We're holding back our energies in serving it in Krishna's service. We are thinking, I will give this portion to Krishna and the rest I will enjoy. Is that ahoituki bhakti? Is that anya abhilashita sunyam? Is that pure devotional service? No. Pure devotional, like Gokuleshwar Prabhu was saying, pure devotional service doesn't mean status, becoming a senior Vaishnav. Right? I like how Gokuleshwar Prabhu says, you just stay here, you'll become a senior Vaishnav. And that's quite dangerous actually, because unless one practices devotional service and is constantly engaged in refining one's own practices of devotional service, when one comes to the platform of practicing for a long period of time and people see him or her here and they're still on a lower level of bhakti, in other words, they haven't looked to attentively chant and purify the heart, then that position itself becomes an obstacle. One becomes very easily susceptible to pride. And all of those sort of anarthas within the heart, they become amplified just simply because of this position that we get. And that is position in name only. Just like Prabhupada often chastises so much that the politicians stay in their position until death rather than understanding that their term has finished and Krishna is in control and they should move on. So, again, I'm rewinding back. Ahoituki apratihata. Sincerely and faithfully. That is devotional service. That is who gets perfection in devotional service. It doesn't mean one is perfect in devotion. Prabhupada says one may not be an Uttama Adhikari, but one can be a pure devotee. What does it mean to be a pure devotee again? It means to simply think of Krishna's pleasure. Krishna Sukha Hetu. One who simply thinks like that is immediately considered by Krishna as a pure devotee. Of course, what level of devotion he is, that's a different matter. One can be a pure devotee even within Kanishta Adhikari platform. But there's a problem with that. One does not see other Vaishnavas. So it doesn't give Krishna full pleasure. But still, that devotee at that level of consciousness is trying their best. And Krishna reciprocates accordingly. To the extent it's mentioned that 11th canto, Krishna himself says, the protection he gives to the pure devotees, he gives that to the neophyte devotees as well. It is not that Krishna waits to see when will you come to a certain threshold, when will you come to a certain level, at that time I'll give you my mercy. At that time I'll give you my protection. Krishna is not like that. Krishna is a person. Okay? He is not a system. He is not an input-output system. Okay? He is a person. And he reciprocates. And because he is the supreme personality of Godhead, his reciprocation is completely beyond our imagination. So here the mystic yogis, their relationship with Krishna is that of understanding him with oneness on the platform of Brahman. Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma Na Sochati Na Kankshati. That is their level of understanding. So these monists are not monists in the most perverted way we see in this material world right now. I mean, it's been there since time immemorial, but most prominent now is the understanding that, or the misunderstanding that the living entity is equal in every respect to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Prabhupada specifically saying that this oneness that the mystic yogis are talking about is not that. The oneness they talk about, Prabhupada explains so many times, is the oneness and difference. Right? That we are like Krishna, like gold is to a gold mine. Can anyone explain this example? How is it that we are like Krishna in terms of gold and gold mine? Can you explain? Correct. So in this example of the gold and the gold mine? Correct. Yep. Any other examples Prabhupada gives? Gold and the golden bangle. Okay. In fact, Prabhupada says, he talks about the gold and the diamond there. He says the gold is very nice, but when the diamond is put in place, it looks even more beautiful. So that he explains in relationship with Krishna and the devotee. Any other example between this oneness and difference? Achintya, was it? Achintya Beda Beda Sattva. Yes, Sagar Prabhu. Okay, you're explaining that one, sure. Any other examples Prabhupada gives? We've explained gold, gold mine. We've explained about the jewel and the locket and the bracelet. Ocean and water. Ocean and water. Correct. That's a very important example. We'll come back to that. Sun and sunshine, also very important example. Because you see in the Shastra, you'll notice that the example of fire is used a lot. The example of fire is used a lot. But I'll come back. Water and the drop of water and drop of water in the ocean. If you take that, even the Mayavadis, those who accept this misunderstanding that the living entity is equal in every respect to the Supreme, they take this example and explain that when, just as the rivers, they merge into the ocean, you know, the rivers, they come from the mountains, they snake their way through the earth and they enter into the ocean, right? So just as they merge into the ocean, similarly, all living entities, they are parts of Brahman and they merge into Brahman at liberation. That is their misunderstanding. But if you read Nectar of Devotion, in the beginning, Srila Rupa Goswami very nicely explains there that analogy is incomplete. Because actually what not only does the water enter the ocean, what else enters the ocean? The aquatic swimming in that ocean, in that water of the river. And when they enter into the ocean, do the fish merge into the ocean? No. They remain separate from the ocean. Right? And Rupa Goswami Pad takes it a step further and says that actually all of this understanding that you merge into the ocean and become one, that's the superficial level on top of the ocean. But in the ocean of bhakti rasa, it is those who are with full understanding that Krishna is the Supreme Lord and we're His servitors, that they go deep and deep and deep within this ocean of bhakti. And they are able to relish and enjoy this relationship with Krishna. Whereas those remain on the choppy top waters, always disturbed. They will always be in that misunderstanding. So this understanding of Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva is very important. Because this is an understanding of monism based on pure knowledge. And Prabhupada quotes or refers to the 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Does anyone remember particularly what Prabhupada is referring to here? Can anyone guess? Prabhupada's talking about 7:17. Can anyone remember this section? Here Krishna is saying that the Lord says that those who are advanced in transcendental knowledge and know the science of Krishna consciousness are very dear to Him, and He is also very dear to them. Priyo hi jnani no tyartam aham sacha mama priya. This is the section straight after in which Krishna gives first the 4 dushkritis and then the 4 sukriti. Does anyone know any of these 2 verses? At least the sukriti, let's focus on that given the time. Yep. Sure. And the translation? Anyone else? Manakrit Prabhu? Mm-hmm. 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 One who's in want of something. Okay. These 4, Rupa Goswami gives examples of these 4. Does anyone remember these 4 examples? Okay. Artha, what is the example? Which devotee showed Artha as a sukriti, as a very pious, fortunate person? Although they came to the Lord in distress, still they're glorified as a pure devotee, having come out of it. Who's an example of Artha? Sorry? Gajendra? Yeah? Okay, good. Distress. Artha Artai. Artha Artati. Artha Arti. Sorry, Artha Arti. That's one is in desirous of wealth, something. Who's the example of that? Dhruva Maharaj. Who is an example of one who is inquisitive or curious? Sages of Naimisharanya. And then who's the last one? Jnani. The Jnani is a person who is seeking after the absolute truth. Very specific. There's a difference between Jignashu and the Jnani. Jignashu is just casually inquisitive. But Jnani is one who's very specifically, one-pointedly seeking out the absolute truth. Who is an example of this? Okay. Gopakumar, okay. It's the 4 Kumaras. These are the examples given. Gajendra, Dhruva Maharaj, the sages of Naimisharanya, and the 4 Kumaras. Now, of these 4, Krishna says that all of them are, in fact, Mahaprabhu says that they're all Maha Bhagyavan. They're all fortunate. And you may be thinking, how is it that they're fortunate? Because when we read Prabhupada's books, we read so much that we see the topmost level of devotional service, and then we don't see anything else after that. There's only pure devotional service, and then everything else is mixed or unworthy of attaining. We are only looking towards that topmost platform, right? So how are these 4 considered Mahabhagyavan? Greatly fortunate. They're approaching Krishna for something. Isn't that condemned? Isn't that something looked down upon? Isn't that something we're not looking towards? How is it that they considered Mahabhagyavan? Can anyone guess? Because they have approached Krishna. That is the main thing. Prabhupada saying here in the purport that those who are in full knowledge of the personality of Godhead, analyzing his different energies and knowing their own constitutional position, are certainly very, very dear to the Lord. Why? Because of many, many lifetimes they have been rotating in this material existence, just simply looking for their own sense gratification. And finally they have come to Krishna's shelter. And Krishna is very grateful for that, to the extent he calls them udharadi, broad-minded personalities. He feels obliged to such persons. Because you can't imagine, but just try to understand that Krishna is in the heart of all living entities. And in all of our lifetimes, in different bodies, Krishna is there waiting. And when we finally turn to him for any particular reason, of these four, of the mixed four, whatever it may be, Krishna is extremely pleased. And with that gratitude, with that that pleasure that finally the living entity has turned to me, Krishna in this section of Bhagavad Gita is glorifying this Shukritina. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is explaining this. Mahaprabhu is explaining, but Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is giving this to us. That Krishna then sees that at least they're coming to me. Whatever it may be, they recognize me as the source of everything. And therefore they are coming to me. Right? Once Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, during Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's days, in his Prakat Leela, in his manifested Leela in this world, in one particular mat, there one brahmachari was trying to approach Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was in his quarters upstairs. And when he was trying to approach his Guru Maharaj, one of his senior godbrothers, his Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's secretary, stopped him. And he said, "What do you want to come and see Guru Maharaj for?" And he said that, "No, look, I need some money to buy some soap, some personal belonging." And so he said, "What are you doing? He's Jagat Guru. You're coming to him for just some bit of soap, some money? You just go and get it from somewhere else." But at that point, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was upstairs walking in the veranda and he heard everything. And he told him, "No, it's okay, send him up." And he explains that actually this devotee is very sincere and very, very dear to him. Why? Because he understands the very simple principle of being a disciple. That is, one is dependent on the spiritual master. Right? So can you fault these four personalities for approaching the Supreme Lord for these things? No, because eventually they'll become pure. Eventually they'll become pure. And again, what is this purity? That you perform devotional service pakka, perfectly? No, pure devotional service means you're serving Krishna without ulterior motive and uninterruptedly. Sincerity and with faith. And so I was going to link that with this, because then straight after that, this whole section of Chaitanya Charitamrita, you'll notice again and again and again, the emphasis is on one becomes pure because of association with a mystic, a jnani, with karmi, with a pure devotee. Association with a pure devotee makes one a pure devotee. Very, very crucial point here. Association. Because throughout his whole section, and I guess I don't fully have the realization, but if you have a look at even the section on the last chapter of that Sanatan Siksha, it's called the Explanations of the Atmarama verse. There Mahaprabhu gives Sanatan Goswami a glimpse into some of the explanations he had given Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya before. He gives 61 explanations. And there, the first six talk about jnanis. And it mentions there that they are known as jnana upasakas. And of them, there are three categories. Going a little bit of detail, but I'll just quickly skim over this. Of them, there's the sadhakas, right? There are those who are trying to attain the platform of liberation, and those who are Brahma Praptalai. They have already reached that perfection of liberation. Then you have different people who are known as Mokshakanshis, those who are desires of liberation. And so on. You have these explanations of all different types of Atmaramas. And in each section, Mahaprabhu is telling Sanatana Goswami, these persons are known as Atmaramas, and in association with the devotee, this verse, the Atmarama verse, comes into a proper explanation. Because when each of these types of Atmaramas come in contact with the pure devotee, they develop their pure devotional service. And then Mahaprabhu concludes this particular section with one explanation, where he explains that Atma means living entity. Atma just means one who's embodied, one who's living entity. And even such living entities, they're able to ahoitukim bhaktim ittam bhuta guno harir. They're able to perform unalloyed devotional service to Krishna. How? By association with devotees. And it is this point that Mahaprabhu gives the very famous story. Can anyone guess what this story is Mahaprabhu is going to give? About, and Prabhupada specifically says this, that this particular explanation or story that Mahaprabhu gives is to exemplify the power of association of devotees. Can anyone give? No, anybody else? Yeah. Narad Muni and? Vedantist? Okay, maybe, but not this particular story. No? Anybody else? No, not that. That's in Brihad Bhagavatamrita. That's not the story. Come on. Narad Muni and Mrigari. This is the example Prabhupada says, that this example is the I don't know any other descriptive words, not coming to me. This is the example for explaining the power of association with pure devotees. Okay? Don't forget this. You want to explain to someone the power of association with devotees, Prabhupada says this is the example to give. And he explains Mrigari's situation. You see, Narad Muni had just come from Vaikuntha to this planet. Okay? And when he came down, he happened to be traveling through a particular forest. And as he was traveling through this forest, he happened to see first that individual animals, I believe the first one that he saw was, he saw a rabbit, a boar, and a deer. And when he came and saw this particular animal, he had seen that the animal was pierced with an arrow and its legs broken. So in other words, it was left in a half-dead situation, and it was in pain. And Narad Muni was so moved that he continued his journey to see what's happening. And as he continued to go, then he saw the boar. He saw a pig in the same situation, pierced with an arrow, but broken legs. And then when he went, he saw a deer also in the same position. And so he continued to walk through the forest. And as he continued to walk, there he saw an uncivilized person, a hunter. It's mentioned that he was extremely fierce looking. He was very, very black in complexion. His eyes were red, and he had a lot of hair. He looked very fearsome. And so when Narad Muni just came close, that hunter had within his aim another set of animals. But then Narad Muni swerved from the path and started walking towards Mrigari. And as he walked to Mrigari, all those animals fled. And as soon as they fled, Mrigari turned around and he mildly chastised Narad Muni actually. He mildly chastised. He said, "Oh my saintly person, why have you strayed away from the forest path and come here? Because you have come here, now all the animals have fled. What do you want?" And Narad Muni asked him, "I have one question for you." And he asked him about all these animals in those half-dead positions. And he said, "Yes, I am Mrigari. I come from a great family. He was very proud. I come from a great family, and my father taught me how to kill like this, and I also kill like this. And it wasn't just that. He said that I find great pleasure in leaving the animals like this. This is the lowest state of consciousness a human being can get. He was such a fallen personality that he was enjoying seeing other entities suffer. And so then it's mentioned that Narad Muni then speaks to him and tells him it's not proper to do like this. I have one thing to ask from you. And so Mrigari says, saintly personality, he had some idea of etiquette. So he said, what do you want? I can give you anything. You can come to my home, I can give you water. If you want to come to my home, I have a lot of animal skin, deer skin, lion skin, all of these skins. I can give you those as well. And like this he explains to Narad Muni, I can give you so many things. And Narad Muni says, no, I have one request. Does anyone know what that request that Narad Muni gave him? Yeah. That's Valmiki. Yeah, I always get mixed up between both as well. That's Valmiki. Yeah. Yeah. He said instead of half killing these animals, kill them fully. But Narad Muni was careful with his words. He says actually killing them itself is sinful. But killing them like in such a way you're doing is the most sinful thing. So at least of the lesser evil, do one of the lesser evil. So Narad Muni is not, he's not supporting animal killing. He's telling Mrigari, your situation is very dire, very, very difficult. At least of one of the two sinful things, do the sin that's less harmful. Because what will happen is that, Prabhupada writes in the purport, that the animals that you have killed, they'll come back and kill you in the same way. In hell, you'll suffer, they will come and give you pain, and then in your next lifetimes, you have to go through so many different lifetimes. That's how many different types of species are there? Sorry? 84 only? 8.84. Sorry, I'm just joking. Yeah, okay, 8.4 million. You have to go through all of those to get to human form. And when they get to the human form, again, they'll be killed by the animals. They have to take the form of the animal, they have to be killed by the animal, and then again, each and every single animal they have to be killed by. And my Guru Maharaj also mentions that Prabhupada says in one morning walk that they'll take birth as a particular species and all the varieties of that particular species. You know, if there's a dog, big dog, small dog, sausage dog, black dog, white dog, this dog, that dog, and then the next species, and then the next species, and then the next species. So this is what Mrigari had to do if he continued killing. And it came to the extent that when Narad Muni explained this, the power in which he spoke, because of the nature of his pure devotional service, the words, they immediately entered into the heart of Mrigari and it caused fear. That same person who is enjoying killing other living entities. Because you see, Kadamba Maharaj explains this. We see karma. We say karma. What is karma? That it's a misnomer. Karma means activity. But what do we often associate karma with? The reactions of activity, right? So what do we know of karma? You do good, you get good. You do bad, you get bad. That we understand as the law of karma. Yes? So Kadamba Maharaj says there's an aspect of karma which is subtle, of the many subtle aspects of karma that we don't notice. And that one subtle aspect he explains through an example. And he says that, say for example, even before our practice of devotional service, when an insect comes, like for example a mosquito, or we see an ant or something, in our gross ignorance, what do we think? This insect is disturbing me. What should I do? I should get rid of it so it won't disturb me. So we'll think about killing it. Right? But before we do anything like that, immediately within the heart, within the core of our existence, we think, wait a second. Should I do it? Should I not do it? Right? There's that hesitance that comes in the heart. But then out of gross, the force within our consciousness due to contamination, due to the ignorance, and to our what is it called? Weakness of heart, our lack of control of the mind and senses, we kill that living entity. Kandamakanda Maharaj says, the next time the same situation comes, what do you think will happen? What do you think will happen? Will the fight be the same between the mind and the heart? No. The scales will be tipped towards killing the mind. Right? It will be more and more fickle-minded. You'll become more and more fickle-minded. You'll have less sway with reason, and you'll be just acting on impulse. To the extent that you won't have any consideration at all, whether it was a living entity or not. It becomes such a casual thing that it's just killing it. So Kandamakanda Maharaj says that this is a subtle aspect of karma people don't realize. In your next life, don't forget, there's that aspect, the gross we know. You have to be killed. You have to suffer because you gave that living entity suffering. But in this life, that creates the ignorance within the heart. It amplifies the ignorance within the heart, so that you continuously perform the same sinful activities again and again and again, without remorse, without guilt. So, Mrigari is of that nature. Mrigari is, Narad Muni met Mrigari, at a particular age where, later in the story you hear he took Vanaprastha. So he must have had children, he must have gone through all of that. How many years must have he gone through all of this killing? He was brought up in such culture, remember? He said, my father taught me like this, with such pride. My father taught me like this, right? So you can imagine how deep-seated within the core of his heart it was. But Narad Muni was so powerful. His practice of devotional service was tivrena bhakti yogena, that just simply by saying this, you should do the lesser of these two evils. This Mrigari got scared. It again made his heart become soft. And then he started thinking at least of his own well-being. Right? Because when you perform sinful activities, you think, it's okay, I'll deal with it later, YOLO, you only live once. Right? I'll deal with it later. Right now I'll enjoy. So Mrigari's heart began to change. And he told Narad Muni, what should I do? I don't want to deal with these sinful activities at all. And Narad Muni said, break your bow. Now the bow is such a dear thing to the hunter. He can't live without the bow. When I was reading this section, if you think about it, the hunter could just go and make another bow. What's the big deal? Narad Muni is saying, break your bow means give up your occupational duty as a hunter. Give up this sinful activity altogether. And he said, what should I do for my living? Who will take care of my maintenance? And in the purport, Prabhupada famously says, income, our source of income is never equal to the source of our maintenance. You may work in any way, but Krishna is the one that maintains you. Krishna is the one that maintains you. It is not the money that's causing the maintenance. Krishna is maintaining Brahma, Krishna is maintaining the ant. Krishna is the source of maintenance. Not you are maybe the source of your income. The money you get, the clothes you wear, all of these things, the quality of living. Yeah, but the maintenance comes from Krishna. Krishna sanctions it, it's possible. So then Narad Muni then teaches Mrigari what to do. Become a vanaprastha, go to the forest, make a kutir, have tulsi marni there, chant japa, water. What about my maintenance? I will arrange that, do not fear. Anyway, as the story goes, we've heard this so many times. He goes, he sits there, people come and they realize the hunter of our forest has become a Vaishnava, let's go and see him. And people had the courtesy, the understanding, the etiquette that if they're going to see a saintly person, they bring something for them. Right? So they go and bring them food, grains and things like that. And so Narad Muni comes later with Parvat Muni. And in the distance, Mrigari sees them and immediately runs forward. And as he's running forward, he's about to pay obeisances and he sees ants in the way. That same personality, like I was saying before, right? He killed animals without even thinking twice. And on top of that, he broke their limbs after he had maimed them, after he had shot the arrows. That personality was now thinking of the ants in front of him. And he was sweeping them aside and paying obeisances. And what did Parvata Muni famously say of Narad Muni? Does anyone remember? What is he called, Narad Muni? Touchstone. To me how? Sparshamani. You are the... I have seen many touchstones. They turn iron to gold or any metal to gold. But you are the greatest touchstone. You have changed the heart. You have changed the lowest and made him the highest. You are the greatest touchstone. So in this example, Prabhupada explains this is the example of how, with the association of a pure devotee, one will be able to attain success in devotional service. And so Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gives this example, but he himself is the exemplar. He is the Acharya. Right? Prabhupada says, he may be the Supreme Personality of Godhead that has come as his devotee, but he is also an Acharya. And although he gives the example of Mrigari, he himself is that greatest touchstone, because he has come to liberate us all fallen conditioned souls by giving us the nectar of the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So there are many things we could have spoken about today. We could have talked more detail about the energies and the energetic. We could have talked a bit more about Bhakta Vatsala. Would have been more appropriate. But I wanted to focus on this aspect of how these great mystics, although they know, they themselves are saying, right, oneness. They are worshipping Krishna in oneness. But they themselves saying the devotees are more dear to Krishna than they are. Right? They have knowledge of this. So this is what we can take from this. One of the many things we can take from this purport. That association of devotee is the most crucial, critical thing for us to progress in devotional service. Hare Krishna. It's 9 o'clock. I'll end here. Thank you very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Shri Radha Gopinath Bhagavan ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bo.